All right, it is talk time. Let's turn attention to other stories now. An ordination service in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State ended last Saturday with the death of 27 persons. Oh, we had the report, it's not 31 of them really, during church building, which the building suddenly collapsed on the worshippers.
Now, this is according to information released by the Akwa Ibom State Police Command, which says every other figure of the actual death toll should be disregarded. TVC News' Uchokoro has details on that.
The scene of the incident has been cordoned off while police investigation into what led to the collapse of the church building continues. However, gates to the compound were thrown open to provide access to the former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Senator Godswill Akpabio, who was led by security personnel to inspect the scene. According to the spokesperson of the Akwa Ibom State Police Command, Cordelia Wanwe, reports of the death toll are being exaggerated.
Right now we have 27 persons actually certified dead back at the morgue by medical doctors. I mean, that's all I can say to you, but I'll tell you that we have other persons who are actually injured back in hospital, but they are responding positively to treatment.
The police spokesperson also confirmed that Governor Emmanuel Udom of Akwa Ibom State escaped from the commotion unhurt.
Governor, His Excellency Gabriel Udom Emmanuel, is in safety. He is fine. As a matter of urgency and fact, 30 minutes after this happened, he was back at this premises. I mean, making sure that evacuation took place. Actually, still, you can see that that's why the cordon has gone on with the Nigerian police, so you do not tamper with anything that is back on the premises here.
Meanwhile, some members of the church lament that the building collapsed due to poor construction work being done on it.
Due to the sound effect of the church, which was also perfect, down in shook the knots that they used to tie or to knot the irons to the pillars. And so now there was no pillar.
Governor, His Excellency Gabriel Udom Emmanuel, is in safety. He is fine. As a matter of urgency and fact, 30 minutes after this happened, he was back at this premises. I mean, making sure that evacuation took place. Actually, still, you can see that that's why the cordon has gone on with the Nigerian police, so you do not tamper with anything that is back on the premises here.
Meanwhile, some members of the church lament that the building collapsed due to poor construction work being done on it.
Due to the sound effect of the church, which was also perfect, down in shook the knots that they used to tie or to knot the irons to the pillars. And so now there was no pillar to hold the iron in the center. Because of that, the building now collapsed from the center.
While the people of Akwa Ibom State are still attempting to come to terms with the tragedy, they want those responsible brought to book.
It's very sad and very pathetic, because especially to much of the Nigerian students, especially in UNU, because we had some deliberation with some of them as at on Friday evening. You know, some of them were like, they will be here. Even me also, I would have been here.
In terms of somebody want to build a house, they should send government people to investigate first on that place they want to build a house or they want to do anything.
My heart goes to the families of the bereaved, because it's totally quite unfortunate. And do you know what this season calls for? It calls for celebration. And as such, people should be in a celebrating mood. All of a sudden this happened. We don't have to question God. We have to take it in good faith.
The corpses of those who died have been deposited at the University of Uyo Teaching Hospital mortuary, while survivors are currently receiving treatment in various hospitals across the city of Uyo.
Quite a number of people and casualties were involved. The hospital has, however, had to receive and is dealing with many accident and emergency cases, neurosurgery cases, many of the orthopedic cases that other hospitals cannot handle. This hospital, Ibom Specialty Hospital, has the specialty to do it.
Meanwhile, those who managed to escape from beneath the rubble with their lives are thankful to be alive.
Some people died and some survived like me. I got wound on my legs, which I can't walk.
When the incident started, someone owed me and put me inside the car and take me to the hospital.
Despite conflicting figures as to the actual number of persons who died when the church building collapsed, many residents of Akwa Ibom State are worried that the death toll is very likely to rise. Uche Okoro, TVC News, Uyo.
Right now, the death toll stands at about 31 from the report we got from Akwa Ibom State. Now, we're joined by the former Secretary General, Nigerian Institute of Building, this is Builder Additional Alade Loba. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Right. And from our Abuja studio is the President, Nigerian Institute of Building, Tijani Shuaib. Tijani, it's good to see you this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, but before we go into the discussion proper, let's bring in more perspective to this story. Now, in the last 10 years, there has been a spike in the number of building collapse in the country, which with more than 20 cases recorded. And of more concern is the lack of punishment for those responsible for the collapse.
Now, let's look at some tragic building collapse in Nigeria in recent times, apart from the one you just saw in that report. In July 2013, a three-story building in Ebute-Metta, Lagos, which had been marked for demolition a year earlier, collapsed, killing 7 people. In May 2013 as well, a building under construction in the Agbama area of Umaya in Abia State collapsed, killing about 7 persons and leaving several others injured.
Now, a school building located in Jos, Plateau State, collapsed in September 2013, killing 10 of about 30 pupils who were said to be mostly below 10 years old. Now, on September 12, 2014, more than 300 people were killed after the Synagogue Church of All Nations caved in the Cotton area of Lagos. It is considered the worst building collapse in Nigeria. And on that day, a crowded 6-story guest house belonging to the trapping about 300 people. Now, most of those killed in the collapse were South Africans, about 85 of them.
On March the 8th this year, a 5-story building under construction at Lekki Gardens in Lagos State collapsed, killing no fewer than 34 persons and injuring several others.
All right, now we'll take this discussion a notch further as we attempt to review some of the known reasons why there are more cases of building collapse in this part of the world. Let me take you to my wall now so we can have a perspective of this before we'll bring in additional and Tijani in Abuja studio. Now let's get into this. You see, buildings, like all structures, are designed to support certain loads. Now the loads are the weights of the people, the objects, the weight of rain, the pressure of wind, called live loads, and the dead load of the building itself. Now, any type of building can collapse, but multi-story buildings are more prone to catastrophic collapse. Let's make a little picture analysis for better understanding here. Now, it starts from all of this. These are some materials, from the sand to the cement, and then from the cement to building blocks, and even all the wood that go into making all the materials that go into building any kind of structure generally, apart from all the metal and all the pillars and all the piers in there used for a building. Sometimes they are substandard, which could lead to any kind of collapse, where we have the builders in here to tell us how all of these things can take place sometime. Let's get into. Now, the harsh economic condition of the country is considered one of the reasons why people use low quality building materials and equipment. Now, the right sand, quality blocks, and the cement has dropped. Now, the process of constructing, now sometimes the builders themselves, maybe due to what the contractor has said, sometimes the quality or the amount of cement added to making the blocks and all of that, sometimes there's a measurement, but when it is not met, at this point, this is where it's got wrong sometimes. And when you get it wrong at this stage, sometimes the foundation is shallow. You can certainly have a building collapse. But we have the builders; they will tell us all of that as we get along. Now let's move on. Now, the use of incompetent craftsmen leading to poor workmanship and non-compliance with the specification standards by developers and contractors has also been a major challenge. Now, certainly that's one area that the builders will also give us some level of explanations in there. Now, let's move on. I think, yeah, it's working. Now, the increasing demand for accommodation and high rate of rent has also triggered illegal conversion. Sometimes you have this kind of buildings that have been on ground for a long time. And then when there is so much pressure, and sometimes when they say development is moving to a certain area, and someone who has a structure like this, for instance, will say, okay, this is the time to make money. So why don't I convert it to something like this? And then beautify it, and someone who comes and sees this, you see a very beautiful house, I must say.
Lovely home.
But you know that for this house to be down for so many years, in most cases, it's no longer as strong. And sometimes they are even story buildings. And sometimes you remove this and construct something on it. And you know the consequences, as the case may be. Now, additions to existing structures, especially in Lagos, we see a lot of this happening. And not just in Lagos, many parts of Nigeria, Port Harcourt, Enugu, Kaduna, Kano, and other parts of the country, all this happen. And you may call that as a result of corruption on one hand, greed on the other hand, sharp practices, and all of that. That's part of what we have in here. Now, additional, let me come to you on this. If the issue of building collapse has been recurring in Nigeria, it's not anything new, but we have not really seen anyone who has really been punished, especially when it comes to the contractor who was involved or the builders, as the case may be.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me create a rider for my answer to your question. Where there's confusion, it means the absence of wisdom.
Yes, sir.
And wisdom is the instrumentality for creativity. And creativity can only come through decision making. And that is when you can record success. In this nation, you have done a catalog of all the collapses we've been having, and you will find out there has not been a single one without any waste. Human and material resources are wasted. And so, there are people who are trained to carry out these responsibilities. And what is it that they get from it after you have failed in carrying it out? Responsibilities must be discharged. And of course, there are penalties for failure and of course reward for successes. So the problem has been that the construction, the built environment has been for all comers. People come into it to come and do all sorts of things because I know you and you are in high office, so I get contract from you. And I go into it, what I don't know. So there's nothing wrong with you getting a contract, being a contractor. Anybody can be a contractor. But then when you get this contract, what do you do with it? Call the professionals. And so there must be people taking up responsibility for their actions. And so that takes me to the National Building Code. It will surprise you to know that a nation called Nigeria has no building code. We don't have building code. I just came back from Kenya on Saturday from a meeting on African Regional Standard Organization. I heard the Nigerian aspect of it for building and civil engineering materials standard in Nigeria, that's SON. And so we went for a meeting. And at that meeting, we had about 36 countries in Africa.
Okay, now before we get to know what happened at the meeting, let's go on a break. Okay. And then we come back to because I know you're making a point in there. Let's go on a break and we stay with us. We'll come back to get more on this. All right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and on this segment, we're discussing the rate of collapsed buildings in Nigeria. The most recent one in Akwa Ibom State, that the death toll has risen to 31. And this is not the first time it's taking place or it's happening in Nigeria. We have, of course, to talk about this. We have the former Secretary General of the Nigerian Institute of Building with us here in the studio, Additional Aladeloba, and we have the President of Nigerian Institute of Building, Tijani Shuaib, with us in our Abuja studio. But before we go to Tijani, Additional, you were making a point about your conference in Kenya.
Yes, so we had about 36 countries in attendance. And I asked a question, please, how many countries in this place has building code? And I was surprised, countries like Kenya, countries like Egypt, Ethiopia, and so many of them have national building code. And I asked, how long? And they said several years. Egypt is as old as over 20-something years. And so, in our nation, incidentally, we had the chairman house committee on industries with his entourage. They were at the meeting to observe. And I had an audience with him, and I told him, sir, why is it that the National Building Code with you in the National Assembly has not gone beyond second reading in 2 years? And the man was surprised, and he said he will see to it when he get back and all that. So the problem we have, for those who may not understand the reason for the National Building Code, is that it defines all the core competence areas of all the 7 professionals in the built environment. And so, if you design a building and it collapses, you take responsibility. If you build as a builder, you take responsibility. Because the truth is that bad construction is an accident waiting to happen. No matter the length of time, it will surely happen. If things are not done the right way, surely we'll have this. And it has to do with our attitude as a people. And lives are getting lost continually. It's unfortunate.
All right. Okay, let's bring Tijani in here. Tijani, you're aware, just in case you're not, let me give you a piece of information before I ask this particular question. At the National Assembly, just recently, the bill on constituency project asking for 20% of the budget is being passed as we speak. It's gone through the second reading, perhaps, and accelerated hearing is given to that particular bill. You wonder why that of the building code has been before the National Assembly for 2 years. Your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Madam. Let me first of all sympathize and condolences go to the families of those who lost their lives on Saturday's collapse at the church in Uyo, and also the state government and the federal government in general. Now, like my former General Secretary said, the compliance, the passage of the National Building Code into law is part of what majorly caused the incidents that are happening. I was in the National Assembly in this just last August when the National Building Code was passed. The second reading was done. It was 2 years ago. It's just in this August. I was present at the hearing for the passage of the National into the second reading. Well, we are hoping that between now and as soon as possible that it will be passed into law.
Now you're hoping, you're not sounding like you want it passed into law, really?
Well, it's not that we don't want to. We have, in fact, it has been. We are part of the 7 professionals with built environment have been working together for the last. In fact, for the last since the 6th assembly. We are the 8th assembly. On the 6th assembly, it went into first reading. At 7th assembly, it went into second reading, and now it has gone into second reading again. Because after every tenure, we have to start all over. We present it, and it is being passed. But is the will of the National Assembly and the federal government to see that it will come into law, to be passed into law.
Yes, Tijani, I appreciate that, Tijani.
The National Building Code enforcement.
I appreciate that, Tijani, but what is your union or association doing to put pressure on the senators or National Assembly members who are supposed to pass the bill? Because you understand how important that bill is.
Yes, thank you very much. We are like I said, for over the last 8 or 10 years, we have been working together. In fact, it's not just only our professional body, the Nigerian Institute of Building, but the 7 built environment professionals, because everyone has a role to play. It is so we have been meeting together. We went to the National Assembly, negotiating or rather discussing with them to see that they pass. But it's the laxity, it's the attitude, and when buildings collapse, mostly is the public. If perhaps, sorry to say, but if perhaps the tough government, this very one, the governor of Akwa Ibom was supposed to be there. Had he been, he was involved. Maybe that could have pushed the National Assembly to see that it has come to the line of the day.
Well, you only just survived by whiskers,
we have been approaching them. We go there, but if we don't have a lending ear, if they are not serious, it's the will to do it.
Okay, all right. Walk us through what you do right now. Now that we don't have the bill, what does the association do to an extent to regulate what goes on out there?
Well, again, there's not much. It's only when you have a power to enforce. If it is, like I said earlier, there is the National Building Code Enforcement Unit, which comprises all the professionals of the built environment. Whether we don't have to be involved in the contract, but with that law, there's a task force that we can form. We visit every construction site.
The law is not available. In the interim, what do you do? Tijani, please, I'm going to interrupt you. In the interim, what do you do? There should be a vacuum, there shouldn't be a lacuna, really. The code is not available, but right now, what do you do to even assert your presence to an extent?
Well, what do we do? Once the concern is going on, we go there. We try to at least to talk to people to make sure that they understand what it is to obey to use the standard materials and to follow the building regulations. But we can't force them.
Okay, Tijani, we'll come back to you on this. Let me come to additional. The both of you have mentioned the 7 professionals in the built environment. Who are these 7 professionals? Are they the 7 wise men?
Well, in no particular order, construction is a collective responsibility. No single person can do it all. Of course, you can see the outcome of all this. Now we have, in no particular order, we have the land surveyor, we have the architects, we have the engineer. Of course, in the engineer, we have about 3 of them: the civil engineer, the electrical engineer, of course, those who call the services engineer, the mechanical and electrical engineer. Of course, we have the quantity surveyor, the estate surveyor, and of course, you also have the builder, and you have the urban and regional planner. I hope there are 7. The engineers are counted as 1. So we have all this there. 2 of them are design oriented. Their core competence area is design. The architect designs, the structural engineer designs. And of course, under the engineering, we have the electrical and the mechanical, they design. Okay? Now, after all this is done, the drawings are taken to the quantity surveyor who does the quantification. It gives you ahead the total costs of your projects, the kind of projection, and most of the time they are right. Okay? Now from there, the builder now takes over. The builder is trained in the technology of building. And what is that? Science plus engineering equals to technology. He's trained in building production management. He manages the human and material resources there. And he does this to an expected end, where he hands over to the owner of the property. But the problem we have really is this, is that even amongst the professionals, we have quackery. If I am a builder and I'm doing the architect's work, I'm a quack. If you are the architect and you are doing the builder's work, you are a quack. It's as simple as that. But quackery taken to another level is where you have a nurse or you have an accountant carrying out construction work. Okay? None of them is excusable. But the truth is that buildings start to collapse right from the design table. Because on the design table, you find out that provisions are made. And if the provisions are those that are very adventurous, okay, you may not understand this to detail, but I'm sure with what I saw you doing, you are more or less like a builder, okay? So you find out that when you get adventurous about this, and most of the time it comes from the client. The client he saw something in Dubai. He comes home and says, I want this. He saw something in US, I want this. Not forgetting that no 2 lands are the same. Even when they are juxtaposed, of course, they are not the same. So, and whoever is doing the design as a professional should be able to tell your client and say, look, this is a level I can go. I cannot go beyond this. But most times this does not happen. And so we go on and play along with them. And so at the end of the day, you find out that people will now do things that are not practicable. And so the building code must, as a matter of urgency, if we want to abate all these killings, unnecessary wastages and all that, must be put out quickly. In this country, you will remember that within a week, several bills were passed. Last year, I'm sure you remember, were passed. Well, why can't us now, why can't us now put the same thing into this national building code, in all the things you gave to us just now, 100 of plus people died 2 years ago at the synagogue building. Now, people died now. And unfortunately, the people will still die if these things are not controlled. So things have got to be corrected. And also, you find out that if there are designs that are buildability and maintainability assessment done on designs, okay, all the areas will come together, and what you cannot see, others will see. And so we bring out, nobody has got anything to lose.
Okay. Well, these 7 wise men will come to break will come to break their responsibility down as we get along. Let's go on a break and we come back on the program. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.
Okay, all right. Thanks to staying with us. We'll go just straight now to our Abuja studio. Tijani is there. We're also talking about building collapse in Nigeria. And Tijani, really, let's come to the question of soil test. Our guest in the studio, he made mention of difference between the soil in USA, for instance, and what is obtainable in Nigeria. Do they even get to carry out any kind of test for the kind of soil even within the country itself?
Come on again. I didn't hear you. Sorry. Come again.
The issue of soil test, carrying out tests on the soil.
Well, I don't want to go into details of that, but there are many causes, reasons that cause the building collapse. Yes, soil test, soil investigation is part of it. It's normally take a soil sample, take it to testing laboratories. From there, you can determine the substructure and the depths of the foundation has to be done. If that is lacking, there could be a problem on the foundation failure. But there are many other reasons. Even if the foundation does not fail, the structures can fail, and many other elements can fail, apart from many other reasons.
All right, Tijani,
non-compliance with the standard material.
Okay, buildings certainly range from some category to others. There are 1-bedroom flats people build, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. Duplexes and industries or industrial buildings, depending on what kind of. At what point are the 7 wise men, like I call them, or 7 professionals required to be present before such constructions are taking place? Do they have to be in all buildings that we are supposed to be erecting in our society?
Well, the 7 built environment professionals come. They can jointly work together or separately at different stages. It depends on the stage of the building. Right from the beginning, right from design, you have to involve the architects. You have to get the town planner. So at various stages, there are various professionals that come into play. The builder is to manage the production of that building from the beginning to the end. But at many stages, the structural engineer will have to put in his input, and so the quantity surveyor. So at the various stages of the building, from beginning to end, including you have to get the town planner. So at various stages, there are various professionals that come into play. The builder is to manage the production of that building from the beginning to the end. But at many stages, the structural engineer will have to put in his input, and so the quantity surveyor. So at the various stages of the building, from beginning to end, including maintenance, because there is post-construction. All those built environment professionals can be involved at one time or the other.
Okay, Aladeloba, let's look at the issue of weeding out perhaps the bad eggs amongst the professionals. The building code is not available, but do you hold sway to an extent on your members in the issue of quackery? And I understand that sometimes when you have building collapse, some engineers can lose their license. How does that work?
Well, like we said, the 7 built professionals the professionals in the built environment, they have their professional bodies and they have their regulatory bodies, okay? And there are ways of dealing with derailments on the part of the professionals. So, because, for instance, Nigerian Institute of Building, we have COBON, Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria, which is a government agency, but headed by a builder, okay? So they are responsible for the regulation of the practice of building in Nigeria. And so if any builder, goes out of his way, of course it's dealt with accordingly. But the truth is
by dealt with, how do you mean?
That they apply the sanctions against him, okay? But unfortunately, unfortunately, you find out that, like I said, concerning the building code, we don't have laws to back all those things up in Nigeria. But for the regulatory bodies, yes. And fortunately, no builder has been found.
No, I'm not. It's just that the sound is not
wanting in all of this. Look at all the building collapses, because builders are trained to manage.
So who do you hold responsible for that? The regulator. The law is not available yet, but in terms of regulation,
it's our attitude. I said it. It's an attitudinal problem. For instance, there's not if the law is not available, and you found any of your member wanting, who has done a construction that's collapsed and all that, there's nothing wrong if the regulatory bodies, for instance, Carbon, Coren, Hakon for architects and all that, if you find any of your members, you call him in and deal with him, okay? But we cannot continue this way. We can't. And that is the unfortunate part of it. We cannot continue. Because we can't say because there is no law and we leave things the way they are and it becomes all commerce affair. So we've got to do something. The government had got to intervene. The lawmakers have gone to do their part on it and get these things out so that people can be held responsible for failures.
Let's get back to Tijani in Abuja. Now, Tijani, both of you have talked about the National Building Code. Can you give us a summary of the specifications of this building code and what it entails?
The certification.
Can you break down what the building code specifies for us?
Well, the building code gives it's a teamwork. It has all the business environment professionals are put in because there are stages that the pre-design, design, and post-design and maintenance. So in all that at various stages, everyone has, it's a teamwork, everybody has a role to play. So but it's what provides for default and sanctions and penalties. For both the practitioners that they are default and also the client that the owner of the building. So if it's just a question of following the rules, all the sections.
All right, now we have had so many building collapse so far in Nigeria, with this recent one in Akwa Ibom State right now. We have not really seen heads rolling when it comes to punishment and some people being held responsible for the collapse. What is your institute doing about this?
Yeah, like you said, if there is no law, there is no offense. If the last four which happened in Kano, in Anambra, and in Gwarumpaya, in Abuja, and this last one, from my information, for all what we gather, there is no built environment, any professional involved. We use quacks. So if our own professional, any professional is involved, definitely that organization or the institute will definitely sanction and sanction the person. But if there is no, we are not involved.
Okay, let's come back to the studio now. All right, thank you, Tijani. We'll come back to you. But back to the studio now. Walk us through what your institute does when it comes to substandard materials for building in Nigeria.
Yes, well, regarding substandard materials in Nigeria, you know, if the materials did not come in through the border, of course, people cannot get access to it. And what we do is that we try as much as possible to make sure that the right standards materials are used. And that would take me, because my institute, Nigerian Institute of Building, does not really have any power over the issue of material. It is a standard organization of Nigeria that has that. Incidentally, I chair that technical committee on building and civil engineering materials.
But your members, don't they know what to look out for to say this is standards, this is substandard?
Of course they know. They are trained.
Patronize that?
They are trained to do that, and they know. Of course, they know the right. And our members also get involved in procurement. But the problem we have is that sometimes, most of the time, the clients, they are penny wise and pounds foolish. When you get a professional on your job, leave the job to him, let him perform. Some clients will say, okay, I'll get the material for you. You are not trained to get the materials. You can't get the right material. For instance, reinforcement, that is iron. Reinforcement, we have so many types of it in Nigeria. Those that are substandard, and unfortunately also, even timber. Timber, the standard has even been reduced. When you get to the plank seller, they will tell you, okay, we have these ones that are not, for instance, you want to buy 2x3 or 2x4. If you put your tape on it, it's not up to that. And all these things continue. So you find out that we are overwhelmed with all this. Because there's a limit you can go. There's no law backing what you are going to do. So if you get there and you get injured, so what happened? So it's a whole lot of, confusion, like I said. And the government need to do something about it. When the building code is passed into law, the building code, what it did is that it has defined the core competence areas of all the built environment professionals. As a builder, you have your role. Architect, you have your role. It's defined, well defined. And so, when it is out, if you go beyond your role, of course, you know you are breaking the law. And so, you will be conscious of it, and you will be running away from punishment that will come out of it. And so, that is why we are advocating for the National Building Code. It's bad enough that Nigeria hasn't got it. And so, it has to. Because it will check to a certain extent. My question to these other African countries is not that buildings just don't collapse there, those areas that have building code, of course. But the truth is that there are people to be held responsible. They get the punishment, and of course it's not as rampant as we have it in Nigeria. And so that's the issue. So regarding material, it is the SON that determines the standard of material. And what do we do at that meeting? What we do is that we either adopt or adapt my standards from other countries, because nobody can be, you can't be a local champion. You need to make references and also other standards from other countries and now adapt them and localize it to your own people. So that's what we do there.
All right, let's take on Tijani for the last time before we go on now. It seemed the building codes we're expecting the National Assembly to pass seem to be the Bible or the Quran of building in Nigeria as it is. Now, what will your institution do to enhance the passage of this bill when it comes to either pressurizing the National Assembly members or lobbying, whichever way it is going? What would you do to enhance the passage of the bill?
Thank you very much. Well, we go for advocacy. We liaise them, right? I have contact with the sponsor of the bill at the second reading. So all we do is I keep anytime we are ready to partner with them, to request them. We put pressure, and we are calling on the federal government to also intervene. Because if the assembly has not done it, the executive can also put in their words. So it is only it's only at that time that we can now call, once it passed, we can now, all other state governments will have to adopt the national building code in accordance with the particular region, so that the laws of the state will have to incorporate the national building code.
All right, Tijani Shuaib, the president of the Nigerian Institute of Building, thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you. Now, additional, what's your last word on this before we go?
My last word is to appeal to the government to please look at this issue we have raised, and the National Assembly to also follow suit to make sure that this bill is passed as a matter of urgency, and also appeal to you pressmen and women to please help us.
Perhaps you can cash in on this particular, you know that the president sent a message to the people of Akwa Ibom. Perhaps this is a time to cash in for your institute. Yes,
what I would just say, let me also commiserate with them. It's better late than never with the people of Akwa Ibom. Any life lost is not worth it at all. And so we commiserate with them. But the truth is that let us as a people, Nigerian, let us do the needful. When you have penny, don't be penny wise and be pounds foolish. Okay. Get the right professionals to do your job for you. Okay. No matter the length of time, bad construction is an accident that will surely happen.
Okay. Additional Aladeloba, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is where we come to the end of today's edition of the program. Thank you for spending your morning with us. Tomorrow we'll be back again on other issues that concern Nigeria, Nigerians, and the people. I am Mike Okwoche. You can follow me for Updates on my Twitter handle at @mokocheTVC.
All right, my name is Busola Mituashi, and I'd like to hear from you, so follow me on Twitter. The handle is at BusiSolami TVC. Bye for now. God bless.
Bye.